What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is Chris B. Daniels once again back in effect on another episode of Show and Talk. So today we're going to continue our Beyond Belief Fact or Fiction series, and this is episode 7 from season 2. This episode was pretty good. Now, I will say this, I do remember every single one of these stories from my childhood. Now, I will also say this. I remember these so well, I automatically knew which ones were fact and which ones were fiction. Um, but anyway, without further ado, let's get down to the first story. So, it's called The Mummy. And in this story, it's about this was gonna be short, by the way, too. I'm not gonna talk about this one long, but it's about this museum curator, right? Who just got this new artifact. It's a mummy, and when he puts it down for display on the display, you know what I'm saying, or as a display or whatever, later on that night, the janitor, the janitor lady, she's cleaning the floors and everything, and she looks up and she sees this woman just floating, like floating. And at first, she think it's just somebody who's in the museum late until she looks down and sees that the woman's feet are not touching the ground. And instead of getting up, screaming, running away like she lost her mind, she's actually mesmerized by it. So the next day, she's talking to the museum curator and she's trying to tell this dude that, she's seen some woman floating around like it was a ghost or a spirit. And at first, the guy wasn't believing her. So she got pissed off and quit. And so I guess the curator decided to talk to, the person that gave him the artifact, or I'm not sure if it was the person that gave him the artifact or the director or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So later on that night, he decides to, stay in the museum late. And next thing you know, sure enough, around the same time the lady saw him, the guy saw the lady, just floating there, just looking at him. I would have been tripping. I ain't even gonna lie to y'all. I probably got out and ran out. I would probably ran out that bitch. You know what I'm saying? To be honest with you, bump that. But anyway, um, he sees her just floating there, and so she turns around and shows like this gash that's on her head, and then she, has him follow her to the display. And it turns out that it wasn't the mummy that the guy was looking for at all. It was her wrapped up, wrapped up like that. So basically, the artifact was switched out with her body. So she was murdered. And that pretty much ends the story. And so, like I said, to me, all the stories are the same length, but it seemed like this one was short. I would give it a 8 out of 10. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't the best one on this episode, but it was pretty decent. So the next story, for some reason, this story had me laughing. I don't know why. Especially the end. It just had me rolling for some reason. But anyway, it's about the security guard who's who's guarding this building. I guess it's an up and coming company or whatever, or the building is still being worked on, so nothing is really up yet except for the security system. So he has this new hire that he's training, and he's going through the building, showing the trainee everything that he needs to know and how to secure everything, so nobody can break in or whatever. And at first you think, the trainee, he's really admiring this guy, you know what I'm saying? Because this guy has a perfect record. The guy that was training him has a perfect record of no break-ins or none of that. You know what I'm saying? And so later on that night, the guy, he sat down at the desk and he was about to he starts reading. You know what I'm saying? And then his trainee comes to the desk and he tells him that everything is secured and locked. And next thing you know, some other guy comes out from behind the desk, behind the guy that trained the dude, and puts a gun to his head. And so it turns out that his trainee wasn't nothing but a robber, you know what I'm saying, who disguised himself as a new hire just so he can gain access to the building to rob it. So they tie him up, and then this dude, the trainee, and the other guy, they start stealing these motherboards and all that. You know what I'm saying? That's worth stupid amounts of money. And next thing you know, the guy that's tied up, he looks real pissed off, and he looks like he's focused on, the the lights and all that. So the little lamp that's next to him burst. And then next thing you know, all the lights that was in the area that the trainee and the other robber was in starts exploding. You know what I'm saying? Just one by one exploding. So they're running down the hallway, and the lights just start bursting above them. Next thing you know, they get taken out eventually. So the cops come and arrest them. And at the end, this, for some reason, I don't know why, but this part had me rolling when he said, I still got my perfect record. Because the trainee thought he was just going to ruin his record, but nah. So what happened was, it turns out that the book the guy was reading was about telekinesis. You know what I'm saying? So he basically, in other words, used telekinesis to bring these two dudes down. And I get this story a 10 out of 10. I don't know why. I just thought the shit was funny. You know what I'm saying? When he said, I still got my record. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's like the way he said it, ain't nothing gonna stop this motherfucker from keeping his record. But anyway, let's move on to story number 3. Now this one right here is gonna be pretty short too for my explanation. But anyway, it's about these 3 kids, right? They're driving down the street, and the couple, they're in the front seat, and then you got another girl that's sitting in the back. And so when they pass the cemetery, the two in the front, they go quiet. They're not saying nothing. And I remember that. I don't know if y'all remember that back in the day where you're in the car with your parents, and then when y'all ride past the cemetery, you get quiet and you start talking again once you completely passed it. That's how it was in this story. You know what I'm saying? So the girl in the back seat was, complaining that they're too superstitious and all of that. So the guy, he starts to explain to her that it was some kind of urban legend involving a guy that was buried there. And so he betted the girl $100 that, she couldn't last 2 hours there. But, you know what I'm saying? I guess she was a struggling high school student. So she took him up on his bet. And he told her, he said, now, at the end of your 2 hours, jam the knife into the ground that he gave her to do so. And so when they dropped her off out there, she sat next to the tombstone, just sitting there chilling, while the other two were in the car trying to get down. You know what I'm saying? So she had 15 minutes left. And out of nowhere, she heard this voice saying something along the lines of, you're not leaving, or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So she thought it was the guy, fucking around. And so she decides to call, the girl. And the girl tells her that her boyfriend is literally right next to her in the car. And so the girl told him that she was about to leave. And then the guy said, make sure you jam the knife into the ground so we know that you were actually there. And so she did that. But the only problem was she wasn't able to stand up. You know what I'm saying? Something was keeping her down. And I don't know how, but by the time the guy and the girl got out there with the cops and everything, she was dead. Like, the chick was dead. Don't know how she died or nothing. Maybe she was scared to death, literally. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. But she died. And so you kind of felt bad for her. You know what I mean? Because it's like, I guess she needed the money or whatever, but I, it's crazy. Again, it's a mystery on how she died. She just died. So what happened was, it turned out that she accidentally jammed the knife into the tip of her jacket. But my thing is, maybe she could have took the jacket off. I don't know. But maybe it was something really holding her down and it killed her. You know what I'm saying? But that story was all right. I do remember this one from my younger days. So I will give it a just for nostalgia reasons. I give it an 8 out of 10. You know what I'm saying? Nostalgia. But anyway, moving on to story number 4. Murder on the second floor. So this one for me, I kind of like the detective in this story. You know what I'm saying? He was likable. You know what I mean? So it's about this guy, right? And he was married to this woman who was a circus performer, and he winds up killing her. And so at the beginning of the story, it all takes place before the story really kicks off. So the guy has also been murdered too. You know what I'm saying? He's been murdered. And so the detective is talking to witnesses and people like that. And he's trying to figure out what happened because everybody's describing the murderer as an 18-foot murderer. You know what I'm saying? Basically walked up to the second floor window and strangled the guy and then left. So the detective, of course, is not buying that. You know what I'm saying? So, he's gaining clues and they found this big ass footprint in the ground. You know what I'm saying? Um, But later on, he's walking through, the guy's house, trying to just find anything. And he finds this scrapbook full of pictures. It was the woman and her brothers. They were all circus performers. But what caught the guy's attention and what pretty much solved the case is there was this picture on the wall. Like it was a promotional poster. You know what I'm saying? And the group was called the Flying Garibaldis, by the way. The three brothers and the girl. And so in the picture, the way the brothers were stacked on top of each other was the same way the eyewitnesses described the murderer. You know what I'm saying? 18 feet, and it had like really, really long black hair. So he pretty much solved it right there. Like, I guess it was the brother. I'm not sure. I guess I'm just gonna say, but I guess he saw that it was the brothers that did it. You know what I'm saying? And he decided not to do nothing about it because he hated the guy himself. You know what I mean? Because his brothers was from Italy, so he decided, nah, fuck that. I don't really give a shit about this dude. You know what I'm saying? So he left. And that was the end of that story. But hey, who knows? Maybe the dude deserved it. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. But they said he murdered his wife or something like that. I guess he was a straight cold blooded murderer. And he got his at the end. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, this story was all right to me. I give it I give it an 8.5. You know what I mean? It wasn't too bad. So moving on to the last story. Now this one is the standout from the episode. It's called "They Told My Car." Now, if any one of y'all seen this episode of Beyond Belief, all of y'all, I'm talking to the ones who seen it. Y'all gotta remember this story. So it's about this dude who's walking around town looking raggedy as shit. And he's looking for his car. And he just keeps repeating to himself over and over and over again, "They told my car." And so dude starts walking in the streets and people beating the horn at him and all of that. You know what I'm saying? But he just don't give a fuck. He walking around. He wants to find his car. You know what I'm saying? He keeps saying it over and over. Like I said, "They told my car." And so he walks up to these like old hillbilly looking dudes. I guess they were retired. No, they were retired. My bad. So, they getting a little, freaked out or whatever because the dude's looking disheveled and everything. And he just trying to figure out what happened to his car. They told his car, but those two dudes couldn't tell him anything. You know what I'm saying? Because at first they assumed that the guy was looking for trouble because of the way he looked. You know what I'm saying? Raggedy suit and everything. But because it looked like he just came out of a river. But the guys told him they ain't want no trouble and they couldn't help him. So the raggedy, disheveled dude went about his way, you know what I'm saying? Went about his business. And so he decides to sit down on the porch of his house. And the little boy came out, wondering what was wrong with him. You know what I'm saying? So he told the boy they told his car. And he kept repeating it. So the little boy decides to take him over to the shop, to the guy who does all the towing in the city or the town, because it was a town. It was only like 300 and some people in that little bitty town. But you know what I'm saying? The guy that played the tow truck driver, yo, he's in a lot of stuff too. He was in Lean on Me. He was in Tales from the Hood. He was also in the movie Trespass. He was in a lot of stuff. You know what I'm saying? The black dude. He was cool. He was the dude that was in that story of Tales from the Hood with the dolls that kept yelling out, they want reparations and, about the dollhouse and all that. That guy, I forgot what his name was, but he's a legendary actor. You know what I mean? But anyway, so the guy starts repeating the same thing to the tow truck driver. They towed my car. And so the tow truck driver, he got annoyed, you know what I'm saying, eventually, because he kept repeating the same thing over and over again. So the guy, you know what I'm saying, the disheveled guy, he eventually finds his car still connected to the tow truck. And he was trying to get it to the trunk because he had to get something out of it. So he didn't have his keys or nothing like that. And the tow truck driver went to go get a crowbar to pop the trunk open. And so when he finally got it open, he had this like curious but freaked out look on his face, like, what the fuck? You know what I'm saying? So we come to find out that the guy that was walking around looking for his car was in the trunk. So he was already dead. That was just his spirit walking around. So in other words, he was trying to find his body. So I guess he can rest in peace. And so at first he wasn't trying to show the little boy, but he needed a witness. So, and the last second he decided, I'm gonna show it to him so someone can believe me. So he showed the boy, and I guess to cover his own ass too. I don't know, but you know what I mean? The dude was in the back with water all in the trunk. So basically my theory was what happened, that he was murdered pretty much. And he was thrown in the back of the trunk and somebody drove his car into the river. Don't know how, but that's what happened. But anyway, I give this story also a 10 out of 10. I loved it. This was probably the best one on here because it was pretty funny. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, that's pretty much for this episode. And if you're watching this on YouTube, give me a like, comment, and subscribe. I'll really appreciate it. Even if it's a negative comment, I don't give a shit. Hey, you watched it, and I will greatly appreciate that. So anyway, I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.
The feeling is mutual. Come in, take a seat, share your thoughts with each, and preach it when you speak, so we can share kinetic energy throughout the brainwaves to keep us balanced out and all on the same thing.